Welcome to a special video presentation of Propaganda by the Seed. I basically never do anything with the videos from these interviews that I record on Zoom because I hate video editing and I like audio editing, and so this is going to continue to be a audio only podcast for the most part. But on this one, Pascal just kept showing us really cool stuff on the video, so I'm going to release it here on YouTube, and it will be totally unedited because I don't want to bother with doing the minor edits that it could use. So what you see is what you get. This episode is also special in that my former co-host Tim returns as co-host for this one time, and I'm sure he'll be back once in a while here and there as his schedule allows. So I hope you enjoy, and if you are finding this on YouTube and not through my regular social media or podcast channels, please check out other audio-only episodes of Propaganda by the Seed at propagandabytheseed.com or on your favorite podcast platform. Also available here on YouTube.
You're already recording? Oh my God.
I just don't want to forget it. I have sometimes gotten started and then they're like, oh, shoot, forgot to hit record. Go back. My web camera is giving me trouble, so I'm not going to use it, but we just use the audio anyway, so we should be all set.
Pascal, it's really exciting to talk to you. I don't know if you remember, but throughout the years, I run a vegan food company, and I kind of started making your fermented cheese rounds.
Oh, cool.
Midcoast Vegan on Instagram. Like, I've shared it with you over the years, but I still use the flour sack method, man. You don't need any starches or anything. It's such a...
Do you know, I don't even use that anymore. I actually streamlined the process, and I just use the Vitamix, and then I use an exact amount of water or sauerkraut juice.
Mm-hmm.
Exact amount, and I don't need to use the sack anymore. And I'll give you a good example right there. So I'm making cheese for my class this weekend, and this is a good example. It's fermenting right now in a plastic bag. I don't even use the hydrator, and then it's solid enough. I can actually shape it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
You can actually streamline it. I've actually made it more simple over the years. The technique works totally with the sack and everything, but I never use it anymore.
That's all. Yeah, I only use it when I'm making a cheese that I want to be really firm. Press out as much liquid as possible, but it's just the simple, old school, great that I learned from you. So I'm a huge fan of, like, when my wife, I'm just saying this before the interview started, maybe it's before the end, I don't know, when I said that I was joining Aaron for this interview, she just started laughing because I just always have your cookbooks out, or I always have your books out.
Thank you.
I never shut up. I just love your shit. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you. So it's so you're gonna be recording the sound, or you're gonna be recording the video in the same time? Like for the podcast, is it like a Zoom podcast, or is it just the sound?
It's just audio only.
Is that your online? Okay, cool. I don't care either way. Just asking.
All right. I'll shut the. Leave mine on. It's fine, I guess.
Yeah. Either way, it's fine. All right. Any last questions before we get going?
No, go for it.
All right, great. Could you just pronounce your name for me?
It doesn't matter. Baudar, Pascal Baudar.
Okay. All right. Pascal Baudar, welcome to Propaganda by the Seed.
Thank you.
I know a lot of people are familiar with you as a author and educator on the topics of foraging and cooking with wild foods, and I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got started in that realm.
Wow, I have to go back to my first memory this lifetime. My first memory this lifetime was actually me foraging with my grandma. Uh, he was actually the one that was teaching me all the basic wild food. The second memory with this lifetime is me running with my grandma because she was foraging on property. so, so I think the trauma made me remember, my grandma and foraging. But yeah, no, I've been pretty much again, like the first memory was me foraging with my grandma, and she probably knew, I would say, like 50 of the basic plant that you can find pretty much anywhere in Belgium. And this was completely normal for the old generation, because if you think about it, they had to survive several wars from 1914 to 1940. And every time something like that would happen, they would go back to wild food as one of the main source of food. So the older generation just knew all the basic wild food, and it was completely, absolutely normal. The term foraging didn't even exist, in the sense that people just will go on a walk and pick a plant to add to the meal or to the salad, like nettles, mushrooms, hazelnut, walnuts. We could find all those in Belgium.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast some things change.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I went back in 2018 in Belgium, and I was talking to the younger generation people, and this is completely lost. Like, people don't know what to forage. You don't even have a garden anymore. This is so interesting. I remember growing up in Belgium, everybody had a garden, and that doesn't exist pretty much. People go to the store at this point. It's so interesting. It really is an art form that was kind of lost, but I must say that the social media in the last 3 or 4 years really has interested a lot of younger people to explore foraging. And again, when you have a lot of people doing it at this point, is also how to do it the right way. That's important too.
Yeah, definitely. Ethics are always something we try to touch on when we're talking about foraging.
Sorry, did you have a follow-up, Aaron?
Nope.
Pascal, I was saying before the interview, but I just wanted to say how much I love your books, and like every one of these books is like just an adventure, and I've got every one of your books almost, except the vinegar one and this new one, and it's like when you it's like I've only made a few of these recipes, but they're all like they're just like, you know what I mean? It's always like these techniques, and it's all like just building up in my head, and it's just been huge inspiration. So if anyone out there hasn't read your books, they're just great to have. But in this book, you talk about research you've done, like examining the remains of bog bodies reading other books to determine that a lot of these wild seeds were things eaten as gruel in the Paleolithic era. Can you talk about the myth of overabundance and its health implications?
The myth of overabundance is true. So it's kind of my eureka moment, or maybe like a bad eureka moment that happened in actually working on that book. I remember going to the store one time, and I was in the produce section, and I was so deep into my research on well-crafted seeds and grains that I kind of had this epiphany of going like, oh my God, this is not the real food. I was looking at everything there, like it looks so abundant, but a good example in my book, I think locally, I collected over 90, and I know there is approximately 120 different seeds and grains that can be eaten locally that I found in the wilderness, and none of them are available at the store. And if you really look at what modern agriculture is to some degree. I'm not talking about the small farmer or people, having their own garden, but I'm just looking at like the big agro. If you think about it, most of the time you're basically removing all the native fauna and flora and you're replacing it with non-native plant. And I would say that, looking at the produce section, more than 90% of the stuff that you find in a grocery store is actually non-native. And so in a sense, agriculture is really playing a major part, like a big agro is really playing a major part on not helping the environment at all. I mean, I remember during the pandemic, I was traveling in an RV for 2 years. And I remember I was driving for at least like a whole day, nonstop. And the only thing I could find was wheat and cornfield. That's it. There was nothing left. There was absolutely nothing left from nature at that point. And it was just, corn, and even the corn, which is really a native plant, on top of it, they managed to make it GMO on top of it, But anyway, so the thing was fascinating on this eureka moment in the store is I realized that we really live in an illusion of abundance. We go to the store and we think we have so much. And we're like, oh my God, look at all this produce everywhere. You go to a big supermarket like, Ralph, Whole Food or whatever, and it looks like so much stuff, And I always give the good example of my student of potatoes. You go to the store and you find how many potatoes, how many variety of potatoes? 4, maybe 5.
4 or 5, yeah.
Yeah, something like that, But then if you really study or if you do some research on how many potatoes are available in the world, you're going to end up with 4,000. Even more than 4,000. And you go, this is amazing. So there's like 4,000 potatoes, but you end up with only 4 or 5 available at the store. So it looks like there is all this abundance, but you really are given, you only get what they are giving to you. Yeah. And
brassicas and brassicas and more brassicas.
Yes. And it was really fantastic when I was working, and the Eureka moment came from this, book that I was working on at the time, on well-crafted seeds and grains. The fact that you go to the store, you may find maybe like 7 or 8 different grains. If you go to like, a health food, like a whole food, and you may find like maybe 5, 6, maybe 7 grains, seeds, sesame seeds and chia seeds or whatever. And I realized that, I can collect like 120 seeds in my environment, but not one of them is available at the store. Not one. Even the chia. I mean, we have a good rainy year like we have this year. Our hills are going to turn purple from chia. This is our native chia. But yet you go to the store in Southern California and you're basically getting a chia that's not native.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. And also, we as a forager, I look at what's available in my environment. How come you cannot go to Whole Foods and say, give me 20 pounds of acorn or 5 pounds of acorn? Acorn is a native plant, but it's probably one of the biggest food waste you can have locally. I mean, you go to a city like Pasadena, and even in the mountain where I live right now, people are driving on it. They see it as a nuisance. They're like, oh my God, all this acorn that's going to create a mess, type of thing. It's one of the biggest food waste, So you look at wheat, for example, you can buy wheat flour, you can buy wheat, but you cannot buy acorn. And if you take a look at wheat has destroyed, and I say destroy, I know we have to feed billions of people at this point, but I'm just saying like wheat has destroyed probably 20 million acres of land. Because it's not native.
But why not use acorn flour?
So
why not make acorn flour?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like how I'm not, I totally understand that we have billions of people living on this planet now, and we have to feed everybody to a large degree. But I think there is a room for actually helping the environment, but also introduce many of those native plants. Because if you plant something like 20 million acres of wheat, you, in a sense, will destroy the environment because of all the chemical compound you're going to be using on it most of the time. And 2, you're not helping the native fauna and flora in any way, shape, or form.
Right. And 3, we co-evolved with eating certain plants over 100,000 years, and we don't eat 98% of them anymore. And so
this is something
that has to have help.
Yeah, and this is something that was interesting when I studied the bug bodies, or those bodies that we found in Europe. Bug are basically swamps, and in the old days they used to sacrifice people and put them in a swamp. The swamp are actually a sacred place. But if you think about it, the swamp is really a giant sauerkraut, because you have all those plants that are really fermenting inside the bug. It's not running water, so it just stays there and ferment. So it's very acidic. So if you put a body in it, you basically pickle it. So they found pickle bodies. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that later, but or I can talk about it now. But one of the things that was fascinating when I was working on this book originally is I was really obsessed with, the reality is, I think it's the only book that exists on well-crafted seeds and grains. I don't think there is any other book about foraging seeds and grains. And as a forager, I gotta tell you, like, when I was learning foraging, I thought that collecting seeds and grains were not worth it. And it was not worth it because it takes time. Like, it takes time, it's too difficult, or whatever. And when I was working on this book, I really also thought that it was very important to look at quantities. Very important to look at quantities. And working on this book completely changed my perspective. It's really nothing to do about quantities. It's everything to do about diversity. And when I say diversity, is by being able to collect some seeds will be, or grains will be easy to forage. Easy to forage. People don't even know that, but they're actually really easy to forage. It doesn't take that much time to collect. I have a good example right there in my hand. I have a jar of, so it's half a quart jar or half a liter jar full of tansy mustard seeds. I can collect 1 quart or 1 liter jar of tansy mustard seeds in less than an hour. That's like 4 cups. That's a lot. This is not survival. That's abundance right there. Very nutritious. The flavor profile. A lot of people don't know that, but a lot of the flavor profile of the wild brassica that we have locally, they actually taste like hazelnuts and walnuts. They use in the Middle East. Those seeds are used in the Middle East to make a drink that's very, very tasty. I've had people from Lebanon coming to my class. They go, "Oh my God, this is the stuff we get over there." So not only do you get incredible amount of flavor, but the diversity will also help that. But some seeds are easy to collect, and some seeds may be more difficult. But are they worth collecting? And in my opinion, they're absolutely worth collecting because you're adding to the diversity. So if you're a forager and you start looking at well-crafted seeds and grains, you're gonna be able to actually expand your pantry, and add a tremendous amount of diversity to your food. And this is why I go back to my bug buddies. So the bug buddies, they actually pickle buddies that they find in those swamps or bogs, and they are so well preserved that one guy could be there for like 3,000 years or 2,000 years, and they're gonna look at him and he looks like he was killed yesterday, type of thing. They actually call the police and go like, "Oh my God," And it's so well preserved that they're actually able to look at the content of their stomach. And I was absolutely fascinated, from my own perspective. I was always fascinated with what my ancestor would have eaten, because I'm from Europe. And all this information were really lost, like what my ancestor would have eaten as, hunter-gatherer or forager 2,000, 3,000, or 4,000 years ago. There is no written information in any way, shape, or form. Locally, like in Southern California, you still know what the native, were eating or are still eating, because some of those seeds and grains were actually collected by ethnobotanists. But you go back in Europe, there's no information whatsoever. So finding this information in the study of the stomach content of those bug people was absolutely like a breakthrough for me. And one thing that was very fascinating, so we're talking about Neolithic time for a lot of those bug buddies. So agriculture already exists. So agriculture already exists, but then I look at the porridge and suddenly realize that pretty much every porridge has like 50% wild seeds and grains and 50%, farming stuff. And there was even one guy, he's probably my ancestor, in Denmark, there was one guy, in the middle of agriculture, he had a porridge that was made 100% with wild seeds and grains. And people didn't even realize that in the old days, because in the 1950s or earlier, the archaeologists will look at the stomach content and say, my God, they had a lot of weeds in those, when they were farming, until finally some forager came in, in the 70s and go, dude, every single seed over there is edible. So it's not, just weed. This was added to it. Yeah. And my conclusion, when I was really looking at all this information, and I have a whole chapter on my book, my conclusion was that our ancestors understood that in order to, you could not just survive on the grain you were growing. You had to add all this diversity that was still found in wild edible seeds and grains. So, and you're not talking a few. I mean, if I recall, there is one of the recipe that had like over 60 different wild seeds and grains in it. Yeah. And I think that's, one of the things that is missing too. Sometimes you hear about people like, oh, I cannot eat bread, or I'm like, intolerant, gluten intolerant, or whatever. And I think what's happening is it's even worse right now, because you look at, for example, regular white flour. It's bleach. I mean, there is absolutely like no nutrition in it pretty much at this point. So that's one of the problems of modern time, and the solution of our ancestor was, to actually still forage all those seeds and grains, which, by the way, will take quite some time, and add that to their nutrition. And this is something that we are lacking in modern time. Our ancestor, I'll be honest, our ancestor didn't care that much, about. I mean, the speed and efficiency was important, but it was not, I think, the first consideration. Of course, they didn't have a 9-to-5 job. Their 9-to-5 job was really collecting food and, working at life, but it was not like, in modern time where you go from 9 to 5. So, a good example would be wild oats. We have a shitload, excuse my friend, we have a shitload of wild oats here in Southern California. None of it is native. But it showed up very early, and native people completely adopted it. So I didn't know to extract wild oats, because it's one of the grains that is really difficult to collect. It took me, it was like a nightmare in the beginning for me to figure out why and how to do it. And, I found information on how the native people used to do it, which, was basically a brand new, give me like a new level of understanding on how to forage. Or my ancestor, maybe in Europe, would have been able to do it. So wild oats, we have so much. Nobody's using it. It's amazing. So we have like this real abundance locally. Again, I think 120, and I think we probably could find 200 edible seeds and grains in Southern California alone. It's unbelievable. It's just completely unused.
Yeah, foraging in California, man. You guys have got it all down there.
Yeah, but I know it's a paradise for wild food, but I got to tell you that traveling in the RV, you pretty much you have an incredible amount of food that can be found everywhere. We're a bit more lucky with the climate, that's for sure. And one thing that's fascinating is we have so many invasive and non-native plants, because everybody loves California. So much so that I was actually able to redo a Neolithic, 100% Neolithic porridge with the wild plant I was finding locally. And this was a porridge found in a bog bodies in Europe. So I've actually had that recipe in my book. Well,
in the culinary treats section. Oh man, perfect, amazing.
And this is something also I gotta tell you. When I started foraging, I always look at seeds and grains as bread and crackers. And I, even when I was working on my book and I would post stuff online on stuff I was working on, people were like, "Oh yeah, seeds, grain, bread, crackers, and flatbreads." And I'm like, oh, and porridge sometime porridge. But I'm like, oh my God, people really don't understand all the possibility that really exists with those grains and seeds beyond just making bread and porridge, you know. And a good example that, you know, people were really surprised, and I didn't think about it in the beginning too, but I've actually an example right here in my hand. I know we don't have any video here, but I have a whole jar of sprouts, and this is for my class. And
What kind of sprouts are those?
this is like a whole, you know, we're talking about brassica over here. This is mostly brassica. It's black mustard, Mediterranean mustard, Tanzim mustard, tumbleweed mustard, wild radish grains. It's a mix of all kinds. There's probably like 12 of them right there.
Wow. It's a lot of diversity.
And that's what I'm saying, you know, is, you know, when I was starting to look at working on this book, I was going like, okay, what else beside making bread, crackers, and all this stuff. And this was in the winter in 2023, and we had a blizzard in California. And that was so interesting. I got stuck. So I was living in an RV at the time, and I got stuck for 3 weeks in 6 feet of snow. And I had nothing to do, and I ran out. So I was living on preserve and all this stuff. And after a few days, I said, you know what? I've got all those seeds and grains that I've collected. You know, let's try sprouting. And
wow.
That totally works. I was able to take like some of the most invasive mustard and turn it into like gourmet food by just sprouting them. And then later on, I started experimenting with all kind of different sprouting of all the seeds I was collecting. But then I went further and I go, well, if I get sprouts, I can do microgreen. And I got to tell you, I mean, we have an incredible winter. It's kind of freaky right now. We're talking about climate change, but this, I think it's going to be 77 degrees today in the mountains where I live. I think it's going to be like 87 in Los Angeles. That's 90 minutes away from here. Yeah. Last year, I think it's insane. Yeah, it's like summertime right now. Yeah. But during the winter, usually this is where I take all my wild seeds and grains and I try to live out of it by just sprouting. I mean, those are my salad, the greens. And I mean, come on, in the middle of winter, being able to get chickweeds and Minos lettuce and all this stuff, it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And it was really a morale boosting too. And I was living in that RV for like 3 weeks and had cabin fever. Just being able to do all my little experiment with the sprouts and growing all those seeds and grains and get some fresh green, you know, that tasted like summer or springtime in Los Angeles. It was fantastic. So I mean,
amazing.
The amount of culinary stuff is just incredible. You know, I love taking. I have another example here. I'm going to show. Like, I know you can't see it, but this is a kimchi that I made with wild mustard for my class. So it's a mix of bok choy and wild food, like 50%. But this is why I love using all the different grains and seeds that I collect too. There's a bunch of wild oats and wild barley over there, you know, inside. So I love the grains and seeds to ferment because some of them are chewy, and some of them may be a little bit too chewy. I'm going to give you a good example very soon. But you start mixing them to a ferment, which is slightly chewy, and people don't even realize it's chewy because it's a kimchi type of thing, or it's a sauerkraut or whatever. And they just eat it, and I have to tell them and say, hey, you're eating wild grain right now. Like, oh my God, they don't even realize it. It's just part of it, you know. One thing that was also fascinating to me is also dealing with so many of those invasive that people absolutely hate. And in California, we have so many of those, like, there's groups on Facebook and on social media about hating plants. Really, like, it's you know, they're really about invasive plant, but I call them like hate group. I get shit from them. It was so funny because I was posting some of my experiment with, like, you know, non-native plant or whatever, and I get shit like, oh dude, you're glorifying, you know, non-native plant, or you glorifying invasive plant. I'm actually collecting all those, I'm collecting all those comments that I get from those hate groups. Like, you cannot do anything good. The only thing good you can do is spray Roundup or do habitat restoration. That means you're gonna take the stuff and then throw it away, which is food
Oh my
waste.
God.
If you think about it, yeah. But one of the things that created the most noise in even from foragers or people who are about the environment was this one right there. So I have in my hands a dry grass, and I don't know where are you located, by the way?
We're in
We're
Maine.
in the Northeast.
What state?
In Maine.
Maine. That's pretty cold over there.
Oh yeah, it was -4 when I left my house yesterday.
Yeah. Not cool.
I have the door open over here. Suckers. No kidding.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm sitting about 5 feet away from a wood stove, so I'm warm now, but it's cold out.
I believe you. So here's a good example. This is probably, I have in my hand something that we call great brome. Great brome, common name is foxtail. So it's one of the most invasive plants we have in Southern California. It's everywhere. This is the one that when we go hiking, and I don't know if you have it in Maine. I mean, you probably have it, but when you go hiking, this is the one that gets into your socks, and it hurts really, really, really bad. You basically, people absolutely hate it. If it goes into your dog's nose, it's going to cost you like $600 or $700 to get it removed at the veterinarian. It even can go into like paws and stuff like that and completely embeds itself. People absolutely hate it. No use for it. They spit on it. They're gonna do. It's absolutely like a pure hate on this one. And when people really hate something, it's super invasive. I become fascinated because immediately I'm going like, well, maybe there is a positive use to it, And this was fascinating. There's a little flat grain. I'm showing it right there. It's a very insignificant grain that's completely flat. And really, really sharp. It's really actually kind of dangerous because another name for that plant is called rip gut brome. Rip gut.
Oh.
Because if you are a cow and if you were to eat it, it is so sharp that you will actually pierce your stomach or your intestine. So no bueno. This is not good. But then, when I did some research, I actually found out that they actually found those grains in clay pots in Europe that were mixed with edible seeds and grains. And I went, what the hell? And they even found a cake that was made in France, with those grain. And you go like, okay, but this is so hard. This is like a rock, It's so flat. It is so insignificant in terms of it. I mean, it doesn't look like anything. I mean, if you look at it, there's nothing there. It's just flat little thing. Yeah.
It's got a cool length to it, though.
It's cool. Yeah. So I started experimenting with it, and it took me a while. I mean, I tried all the different stuff that didn't work. I tried soaking it. I tried doing all kind of different stuff. But the thing that really blew my mind was when I started boiling it, and I boiled it for like 70 minutes. 70 minutes. And you end up with the most beautiful red rice. And really, and I have a good example right there. So you can take this little flat grain, and then you boil it for 50 minutes, 70 minutes, and then you end up with, and I have a good example right there. Look how beautiful that grain right there. So it looks like a very plum.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
So, and then you push on it, and you see all this starch coming up. So look at the amount of starch that you get coming out of that little grain. This is perfect for mixing with ferment, by the way. It's a chewy grain, but it is so pretty too. And I'm a sucker for aesthetic because I'm an artist, so I like my food to look good. So the most invasive plant in Southern California that everybody hates is actually food, and was food of my ancestor. There is one of the bog body that had this one right there as part of the recipe. Not a lot, but it was there. And I love doing research like that because I'm studying, again, this is like the most invasive thing is actually food. Yeah. It makes me laugh. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, fascinating. And that it kind of takes away some of the concern of like over harvesting and
Yeah.
some stuff that can go wrong with foraging. Whereas if the plant's invasive, then you can go hog
Yeah.
wild and pick all of
Yeah.
it if you can.
It's your
Yeah.
duty.
It is something that's interesting for me. I really look at foraging from a different perspective. It's not really about taking, if you're really responsible. And that's why I like to use the word wildcrafting, because wildcrafting implies there's an ethics to it, and there is a taking care of the land. That's part of it too. And I really think that if you do it correctly, you can actually forage and help the environment. You know, I mean, as a
Excellent.
forager,
What kind of points would you touch on to help people have a positive environmental impact and avoid an unintentionally damaging the ecosystems that they're foraging from?
so 90% of the food that I collect at this point in locally is non-native and sometimes invasive. 90%. The 10% that I use, I always plant more than I will ever take. That's my philosophy. So if I take black walnuts, for example, I've planted black walnuts. I've planted 7 or 8 trees at this point, and they're growing very well. If I plant one tree, it will give more than I will ever take in my lifetime. You know, white sage, I plant white sage all over the place. I have some white sage in my garden too. So I also use my own like wild food garden, but mugwort, same thing. I use a lot of mugwort to make beer or whatever. It's very easy to collect the seeds and plant them. So that's kind of my philosophy. I look at, how can I help the environment with and I'm not saying I'm perfect either, but I'm just saying my philosophy is really try to look at the environment and how my activity can actually help it. Most of the brassica, that you find locally in California are really non-native, and many of them are very invasive. I think I found something like 16 different types of brassica locally, from Sahara mustard to tumbleweed mustard to Mediterranean mustard, black mustard. They're all non-native. Many of them were crops or are still crops in different countries. So why not using them? It's kind of like my philosophy on it, and I can go for it. I mean, like, I'm not even making a dent, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been able to erase. This was fascinating, and that's why I'm saying, like, sometimes, we have it a little bit backward. But I remember I used to go to a public park, and there was a whole field of mustard, and we actually nearly erased it just by doing the classes. Until one time a ranger showed up and said, "You cannot give classes over here." So I stopped giving classes, and guess what? 5 years later, there's black mustard everywhere.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you can have a pretty significant effect on some of these invasive.
I mean, I was giving classes at the time pretty much every week, so we were going at it, on those black mustard fields, and they keep growing back, and I think we were at it for like 10 years.
Wow.
And then suddenly
That's funny.
This young ranger go like, "Oh, you cannot, have a business in the park or whatever." And I'm like, "Dude, we're like picking up invasive. We're not even touching the native here. We can't do it." I'm like, "Okay, whatever."
Damn. Hey, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go for it.
When you say you're planting a black walnut, do you mean like you're like physically taking the seed and putting it in the ground, or like with others, are you like spreading them? Is a little bit of both? Like, I was just curious what you meant by when you
different
plant plants.
Different method. I at this point this year I don't have one, but I usually have a little nursery that I take care of, and I will plant like white sage, black sage, the walnuts or whatever. Stratification. I mean, I use all the different methods to grow those things, and those are the things that I use the most. White sage is a bit more complicated to grow, so is black walnuts, for example. I put them in the fridge for the winter, and then when they start popping up, then I plant them, and then I supervise
Cool,
them.
man.
And then I will take the pot and then remove it and plant it. I've tried different methods, and I was not always very successful, but that was the best method. So you can, I basically educate myself too, online on how to plant native plant, for example. But
That's great.
It makes me feel better because and I try to impart that philosophy to my class too. It's like, I think we cannot lose this foraging thing. I know that 99.9999% of the population will never go foraging. They don't care. They don't give a shit about foraging. After they go to work, they just want to go to the supermarket and buy the food. So it's not that foraging is really, to be honest, like a big deal. Most of the
Right.
population would be interested in doing it, but there should be room for for some of us who wants to do it. There should be room for some of us who want to have flavor that are really terroir based or based on the environment. Organic food, dude. Like even those black mustard and all this stuff is, if you know where to collect it, it's absolutely fantastic organic food. Not collecting wild food or things like black mustard, for me, at this point, I really look at it as one of the biggest food waste in Los Angeles. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of black mustard and different mustard, and nobody's doing anything. No, nobody is collecting it in any way, shape, or form. But yet, here in Los Angeles, you have people who cannot afford organic food or even regular food. I think there should be like a city program doing it. I'm going to show you like something gourmet that I do with black mustard, which is like a, really invasive in Los Angeles. I make the most incredible Dijon mustard with it. I totally collect those seeds. I make my own beer and my own wine. So I use that and my own vinegar. So this is 100% wild Dijon. When you eat that one, you can never go back to the store. I'm sorry. It's made with mugwort beer vinegar, mugwort beer mixed into it, and it's literally ground with a molcajete. Like, you can use a Vitamix, but I still do it like old style. It's absolutely between Dijon mustard and wasabi. It's so amazing. And I use that. So I love taking those invasive plants and turn them into gourmet food. Just because I can. Yeah.
Have you ever used wild yeast as a culture starter in a cheese? I know it's way off base, but I was just thinking looking at
everything I use is wild. So for the wild.
No, I mean like using like specifically like a juniper berry, or like not using a lacto fermented vegetable as a starter, but using like a juniper berry to start a cheese or something.
Yeah, you can totally do that.
Wow, that'd be cool.
You're totally in control of the fermentations. If you take a juniper berries and don't use salt, for example, you are going to get an alcoholic fermentation because the yeast will take over. But if you don't add salt and you feed it, so if you add salt, you're basically killing the yeast and you end up with the lactobacteria. So you have a lactose starter that way too. I make my sourdough, and the way I make my sourdough is I will put a bunch of wild berries into the flour, and I just add water, and it works 100% of the time. I get the sourdough starter that way. And juniper berries is one of the berries I often use. I give you a good example right there. I'm going to show it to you. I know, again, this is recorded, but...
Sorry to throw Aaron, Pascal. Sorry to throw you off base.
No,
sorry, guys.
That's fine. We love tangents.
This is a good example of a yeast starter, and there's probably like 15, no, not 15, maybe 10 different plants, wild plant, and then 2 that are not wild. Is manzanita berries, pinyon pine, white fir branches, juniper berries, mugwort, 3 different types of wild mint, California sagebrush, willow leaves, and we have a little bit of lemon and some ginger. This is the way I do my starter to make my wine and my beer.
Wow.
And the way I came up with that one is because sometimes people will tell you, well, if you're using wild yeast, your wine will never go above 5 or 6% alcohol. One is completely untrue, by the way. Every time I say that, I'm like, good, I have somebody who has never tried it. But it can happen. You can actually sometimes pick up like a berry and try to get more than 6%. It doesn't work. And so this is all the stuff I can collect locally. The only reason I put ginger and lemon in it is because I love to drink it and get drunk sometimes. While I'm doing it. So I may as well have fun doing it. And so by having so many different little microbiome, I'm guaranteed that one of the strain of yeast will actually go very high because I've got 12 different sources. And it was just a theory at one point. I was like, yeah, if I take like 12 different sources of wild yeast, I'm sure one will take off and give me like a one that can go like to 14%. It works 100%, not 99%, 100% of the time. Like every time I make wine, I go above 10% guarantee, not just maybe, like it's guaranteed. And this was my solution for making beer, wine, or whatever. And I have one that happened at all the time, like any time of the year. Sometime, I had a bunch of guests that came like 3-4 days ago, so we drank like half of it. So usually I have a very big jar of it, like 1 or 2 gallons in it. And this is what people drink every day, when they come here. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
That's fascinating.
So when you do seeds and grains and you want to make your sourdough bread, boom, there you go. You got your own microbiome right there.
It's amazing.
Sorry, we got distracted.
Pascal, just to put it out there, you're showing us so much cool stuff on the video. I think I'll probably try and put out the video on this one as a special thing. So by all means, keep showing us cool stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
So if people want to get into harvesting wild seeds and grains, what are some of the basic techniques for harvesting and processing that they would need to become familiar with?
Yeah, so that was the main problem, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, the different extraction method. And what I came up to the conclusion is you can have all kind of different method of extraction, but some of them will work better with some grains and seeds, and some of them will work better with other type. A good example, that I know we're going to go on video. Look at this one. So this one is called Indian rice grass. This is a plant we have in the desert, and that's completely native. And if you take a look at those grass, you see these black dots right there. Those are all grains. They're basically edible grains. It's gluten-free grains, by the way, too. So it's called Indian rice grass. It's not rare. I remember going to my RV, visiting my daughter in Idaho, and I literally found thousands of acres of it in the desert. It was just to infinity and beyond, like absolutely just this rice grass. I didn't even know. I was looking for it for such a long time. I even did a whole trip to Colorado to find it, until one time I was driving to Los Angeles and I found that I had it right here. So once you see it and you know it, you cannot miss it. But this is really difficult to extract. Why? Because it's like entangled. It looks like a web, a messy web with a bunch of little black dots in it. And this was a good example of trying to be smart. And I found out that those grains are really hard. So taking a comb, like a regular comb, like you make your hair with, was a fantastic way to do it. You can grab those grasses and you take a comb and you just brush it, and you're basically grabbing all those grains between the teeth of the comb. So I started really looking at every grain and seeds that I was collecting and go like, how can I be really effective with it? Sometimes, this one actually at this point, what I found out is you can just leave it alone for 6 months. And if you go like this, they're really all gonna fall by themselves, kind of, I'm gonna give you a good example on how this works. This one is a plant I collected in Newfoundland called mallow-grass. Mallow-grass is another grass with seed heads that are really not very, you're not going to look at it and go like, whoa, look at those grains. Like the grains are nearly invisible if you think about it, It's non-native. I don't think you have that one. I was actually looking at a map. I don't think you have that one in Maine, but eventually you will get it. It's coming from Eurasia, so it's moving all over the place in the United States, and so one time I was picking up between my finger and just kind of like, kind of like mash it between my hands, or going between my hands, and all those grains will fall off. Like, oh my God, that's so easy to collect. And this was one of the amazing grass like it looks like nothing. It's super easy to collect, and I mean, we did a class. I had 15 people. We collected a whole bag in 15 minutes. Oh no, sorry, 3 minutes. A whole bag in 3 minutes with 15 people. So if I was by myself, it's 3 times 15, so it will be probably like 45 minutes to collect a whole bag. That's really full. The amount of seeds I can collect from this is probably 3 cups.
Wow.
So 3 cups. Those grains are absolutely beautiful. I have a good example right here. They look like mini wheat. They're right there. They look like mini wheat. And they absolutely taste like wheat. So it's kind of like a tiny wheat. I can totally put that in a strong grinder or even a Vitamix, like a food processor, and I can make bread. Well, essentially, what came up when I was working on that book, and I thought this was completely impossible as a forager, is that I can go out in the morning, forage seeds and grains, and by the end of the day, I'm making bread. And
That's crazy.
I know, that is crazy. Like, I thought it would take me days to actually do that. But with the knowledge I've accumulated working on this book, at this point, I can just make bread by the end of the day, flat bread or whatever. And mostly in the diversity that we have in Southern California, you know. I think I went off the trail over here a little bit. What was the original question?
What are some of the basic techniques needed for
so
harvesting
basic
and processing?
So I have a whole chapter on that. That's what I was talking about, basic technique. And they will range from doing nothing, which, by the way, the reason I was talking about smile or grass, doing nothing is probably the best way. And I have a photo of doing nothing. You just hang that thing right there, and then you just leave it, and it just falls off. In this case, I have lamb's water right there. That works with smile or grass. You put it in a bag, you forget about it, and the seed will fall above the bottom of the bag. If you want, you can do a dance on the bag, and you're going to be opening all the shaft, and all the seeds will fall at the bottom of the bag. This is true for all the brassica, by the way. All the mustard, you just take all those seed pods inside the bag, and you just do a little dance on it. It will totally open all the shaft, and all the seeds falls at the bottom. Then you take scissors, you create a little hole at the bottom of the bag, and then you pour everything through a strainer, and you collect all your seeds. The amount that you can collect is, again, like an average of like 2 or 3 cups, and sometimes up to like 4 cups of seeds in 1 hour.
Wow.
So this is not, let me see if I have a photo of it.
Have you ever used a bucket thresher?
No. I saw that, but I thought that most people won't have the ability to actually put one together. Because you need equipment to do it and stuff. So I tend to go for things that are like super simple for people to use. So I kind of forgot, I didn't want to use the thresher because I thought it was too complicated for most people. I really want anybody to read that book and actually able to do it right there and then, that's like what I wanted. This is a good example. That's why I was saying I got the mustard. You pick it up, then you put it into a bag, and then I'm going to stomp on it right there, and then everything falls at the bottom, so I do a hole with my scissors. Then you have your strainer right there, and then you collect your seeds. It's super simple. It's so effective. It's not funny. Yeah. So there is probably like 15 different way of collecting grains and seeds. One of the one that was super interesting. We have a lot, and you probably have that one in Maine too. Something called wild barley. It looks in California. It grows in your yard. It looks like little pieces of wheat. But if you try to extract the grain by hand, it's impossible. You're just gonna go nuts. Like, yeah, it's crazy. And it's so abundant everywhere, and I know there is grains in it, but it's just so it would take you like 3 minutes to extract one by hand. It's just insane. Yeah. And I was looking at different technique, and one of the technique looking at archaeological record was fire. In the old days, some people would even take wheat when it was still a little bit green. The grain was still a bit green, and the shaft was dry, they will light everything on fire. And what will remain was the grain, because the grain had enough water that it would not burn that fast. So this was a good example when I was working on my wheat. I just put my wheat you need the right time of the year to do it, but you can put your wheat when the grain is still a bit humid, and then you put it into a big container. I don't care if it's wooden or ceramic or whatever. You light in fire and you just move it constantly. So you don't want to burn it, but you want to burn the dry shaft that surrounds. That is so effective. I mean, like for the first time, I was going like, wow, I can totally collect so much of those grains. It's actually quite fast.
Yeah, that sounds like fun too.
I know. I'm like, fire, yes.
It's not something you want to do in California, because I know California is like, oh my God, those foresters are gonna light the forest on fire. Yeah, but
yeah, we live in a much damper ecosystem.
Yeah,
yeah. No.
People here still throw cigarette butts out the window. I'll go out in my yard and be like, oh my God, there's 10 cigarette butts got thrown. Living in the Southwest, you're like, no one throws cigarettes out the window.
No. But some people still do it in LA, because that's one of the problems. We have like a lot of wildfire starting on the side of freeway. It's people throwing their cigarette. Yeah. But anyway, the thing that really blew my mind, by the way, let's go into modern technology. So a lot of those extraction were actually, old technology or old method of doing things to extract those seeds and grains. But one time I was collecting. I wanted to collect the seeds of wild radish pods. So wild radish pods are kind of like hard little pods. Actually, if you give me like 10 seconds, I'm going to collect one in the garden.
Oh, man.
This guy's a hoot.
Amazing.
He keeps answering my questions before I ask them.
This is fun. This is like getting to look into Pascal Baudar's pantry was not on my bucket list for the month, but I'm very enjoying this.
So look at this one. So this is in my hand. I have a bunch of weird looking pods, and those are called rat tail radish. Why? Because it looks like the pods look like the tail of a rat. Completely edible, by the way, when it's completely green. It's super yummy, tender. It's fantastic in wild Vermont. It's invasive in California. We have it everywhere. It's so good. Yeah. And
your spicy radish. Spicy radish ferment.
There you go. And you can even use the leaf too. And you can use the roots. But if you open that pod, then you're going to have a big grain. But it's a pain in the ass to collect. I mean, you can see I'm like trying to do it by hand. And anyway, I'm not even able to do it by hand. So in the old days, it's right there. There's a grain inside. There's a big grain though. It fell down somewhere. See, that's the problem. Like it's a pain in the ass to collect. So I actually put everything, all those little pods right there, into a Vitamix. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put it at low speed and see what happened. And I let it do its thing. And after, I didn't think much of it. I was going like, I don't even know why I did it. I thought it would be a good idea. So anyway, I went back. I was working on my computer, and I go back and look at it 10 minutes later. And guess what? A lot of those pods had been broken, and those seeds were extracted. And I went, oh, that's interesting. And the next thing I did is I took my wild barley. So wild barley is the one that's like nearly impossible to collect by hand, and you have to use fire and stuff. And I put them in my Vitamix, and I put it on low speed, like number 1. I have one of those, like really low speed. And I had no real hope, by the way. I don't even know why I did it. And I went back to work, and I kind of forgot about it. And I went back like 20 minutes later, and it 100% work. It blew my mind. So basically, the blade of a Vitamix is actually square. It's not sharp. It's square. And what it does, it kind of like remove the shaft, but it doesn't really damage the grain at low speeds. It doesn't cut it. It doesn't do it, so it doesn't damage it. And you can put a huge quantity of those grain inside a Vitamix and you put it on low speed and you just go outside and do your thing for 20 minutes. You come back and most of the chaff has been turned into powder or has been removed. And you have this beautiful, tiny little wild, barley grain. It's so easy. You can collect cups and cups. It blew my mind. This was for me, probably in this book, using the Vitamix method was a game changer as a forger. I mean, like an incredible game changer. And I know we need electricity and all that, but I'm not at the end of the world anyway. So end of the world, we can use the other method. But I gotta tell you, this is a photo of those. So this is your wild barley right there. And this is the grain that you can collect after they went through the Vitamix right there.
That is awesome. I mean, it's basically a bucket thresher. I mean, it's just a little bucket thresher.
That's a bucket thresher. That's closer, but the only difference is you can buy one secondhand for like $200 refurbished online. And bucket thresher, you kind of have to build it yourself, right?
Yeah, for the most part. And it's a matter of scale too. Like for a real small scale, like kitchen scale, a Vitamix is a great multi-use tool. It does a million things.
Yeah, and I have an old Vitamix, like a 60-100, and there you go. So I just load up all my wild wheat and fill up like 3/4 of it. Cover it, and I mean, what I like about the Vitamix, we have something called stomper, which you will find, some food processors have that too, and you just keep pushing it down. And when you do wild wheat, you have to use a stomper, by the way, because they're all trying to escape. They're like, let me out of here. So you have to push them down. But after like 5 minutes, you don't even have to push them down. It kind of like turn itself off, and just. They do his thing. You come back 15 to 20 minutes later, and you got your grain and your chaff, and you just blow the chaff, and your grain is right there. It's unbelievable. It just blew my mind.
That's awesome.
So this was a game changer. That's basically my treasure right there.
Yeah, that's awesome. What a great innovation.
I don't even know if it's an innovation. I'm sure, but
I've never heard of it from anyone else. So
there you go.
We can call that an innovation. Are there any risks?
I should contact Vitamix and get money from them. What the hell?
Are there any risks to foraging wild grains and seeds, or any poisonous lookalikes that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so the rule that I have, if you're a new forager, the rule will be like, if a plant is poisonous, it's probably not a good idea to eat the seeds. The grains.
Fair.
Poison hemlock would be a good idea. Not a good idea to actually use the seeds and grains. I don't know. I just assume, by the way. I've never, I don't want to do it. Datura would not be a good idea, for example. Any plant that's like super psychotropic or deadly, like Datura, probably not a good idea to eat those seeds. So that's kind of like the rule I would give to anybody. Like, if a plant is not edible, for God's sake, don't eat it. But also, in my book, I also explain that it's like foraging anything. You need to identify the plant. You need to identify the plant and really find out what it is and do some research on it. Mostly if you start looking at your own terroir. The book is really about all the most common seeds and grains you're going to find worldwide. And the reason I did that is because I want anybody to be able to buy that book anywhere they are, including Maine or Belgium or Asia, and they should be able to use the book, because those are the most common weeds: lambswater, nettles, curly
milk thistle.
I mean, you name it. And I did that on purpose. But then I also gave the tip on how you go about finding what's in your own terroir, in your own environment. And I have a whole chapter of what I found in California. And I give even the whole list of what I found in California. So that's kind of like, that was my approach. I want everybody to be able to use that grain. I think this book is so important in the sense that it's, from an economical point of view, I mean, food is so expensive right now. The ability for you to go outside and make your own sprouts, make your own microgreen, the ability to make your own flatbread or bread, from grain and all that. It's an incredible, culinary skill, but it's also an incredible survival skill. And this is knowledge that has been lost. It took me so long to really research it and really be careful about which one were edible and not edible, and how to process it, and what a lot of people don't understand too is that you need to be able to prepare and process those seeds and grain efficiently so that you don't run into issue of anti-nutrient. And because a lot of people don't even think about that anti-nutrient. A lot of the seeds and grains have chemical compounds that are actually anti-nutrient for you. They're basically compounds that exist on seeds and grains. They are set up by nature or by the plant so that it discourages things to actually eat them, because this is the way they reproduce. So they don't want those animals or whatever to actually eat them. So a lot of those seeds and grains will actually have anti-nutrient compound on it, or chemical compound on it. It could be oxalic acid. It could be, I have a whole list on them. Let me see if I can find it, because sometimes I go into I don't like going into scientific stuff, but I had to talk about it. So you have, let me see. I'm going to keep it simple for this interview. So you basically have a chemical compound that are anti-nutrient on it. There's probably like 6 or 7 that are really the main one. But there is different method on how to remove those anti-nutrients. And if you look back in time, and when I was looking at all the way my ancestor, or even people in some other country, will process those wild grains and seeds, they were using method that will actually remove those anti-nutrients. And the simple one probably will be soaking the grain, for example. So by soaking the grain overnight, you basically remove the chemical compound that's around it or a part of it. Fermentation will be another one. Fermentation, will eliminate for a lot of the oxalic acid compound, for example. So it's good to know. Cooking is also helps too. So I have a whole section on how you can actually take a lot of those grains and seeds, wild grains and seeds, and remove a lot of the anti-nutrients, which, by the way, they don't do at the store. So when you buy seeds and grains at the store, they don't do anything to it. So technically, your flour that you buy at the store, they didn't do anything to it. But soaking and fermenting and sprouting, sprouting is also a big deal too. If you collect wild seeds and grains, or even regular grain, and you sprout them and make bread with it, not only are you increasing the flavor, but you're also increasing a lot of the nutritional value out of it. And in the process, you're also removing, those compounds that are anti-nutrient. Nothing new. I mean, I remember when I started learning foraging, I learned a lot from survivalists, and survivalists never care really about anti-nutrient and stuff like that in the food. So I remember I was collecting a lot of lime squatter which is a kind of wild spinach, and I would collect a lot of curly duck, which is some kind of wild sorrel. And I would eat a tremendous amount of this stuff. And by the end of the year, I ended up with a kidney stone.
Oh my God.
Because I didn't realize I was on a very high oxalate diet, because the survivalists didn't care. They'd be like, no, it's edible. But there you go.
Wow.
I was eating so much of it that at the end of the year I ended up with 1 kidney stone. And I
Can
know
I ask you?
Yeah, go for it.
Can I ask you a question? Because the thing about like oxalic acid, I'm helping derail this conversation, but oxalic acid is in spinach. It's in rhubarb. Yes, It's present in sorrel and curly dock. But do you know? Is it like no one ever talks about this? The presence of oxalic acid in spinach, and we're constantly served it raw, and it's supposed to be the healthiest thing.
Well,
that?
It's not correct. Somebody like me, and this is I'm prone to it. Just so you know, so my dad and my grandpa, used to get kidney stone easily, and I get kidney stone easily. I actually have like 2 or 3 kidney stone right now. They're just sitting there, and you can spend 10 years with them. It's not a big deal. They don't grow like that fast, type of thing. But if you go on a high oxalate diet, that's a problem. But you look back, you look back at traditional use of those plants, and for example, lime squatter, what people would have done in the old days, they always cook it, boil it, and then change the water and then serve it. And by changing the water, you actually remove most of the oxalic acid that can become a problem for yourself. So they knew that. They were not really eating it raw, by the way. This is kind of like a new thing. But you also look at the fact that we have a bigger diversity by going to the supermarket than people, in the Middle East, for example. You go to a market, they will sell the lime squatter, they will sell amaranth, which has also a decent amount of oxalic acid. So our diet is a little bit more varied. So it's not that big of a deal. I mean, but for somebody like me, I don't eat spinach raw from the store because I'm prone to it. So I know it. Fermentation, by the way, is also another way to remove oxalic acid content. When I was doing some research, I think you remove close to like 80% of the oxalic acid. It changes the chemical compound and makes it much more edible for you.
Interesting.
Which I found was the same case with also the grains and seeds. So when you collect the grains and seeds and you ferment them, you basically boosting the nutritional value, but also removing the nutrient in the process too. So it's something to be aware of it, and I kind of explain that in my book. It's not a big deal if you, as a forager, if you collect seeds and grains and do that kind of like on the side, and it's not like a huge amount. But it becomes a big deal if you really take seeds and grains, and it becomes a big deal of your food. Shitted the fence scenario, or you decide to go completely off grid and decide to be crazy like I did and spend a whole year eating wild food only, then you have to take that into consideration, for example.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Aaron, did you have any weirdness when you ate acorn as breakfast for a couple of years? Did that agree with you?
Because I never did that.
I had no issues, but I was leaching them until there was no taste of tannin, and I was eating that mixed with other stuff, like usually oats or something mixed in with the acorn.
Yeah, no, usually acorn I make bread, but the bread is not 100% from acorn. It's a good example. Those are the one acorn I collected yesterday.
Those are beautiful.
Oh, those are big ones. Those look like Holland long nuts.
That shit.
Wow.
So those ones are practically not bitter, by the way. The leaching time, if I do cold leaching, the leaching time will probably be like 4 days at the most. So what I do on something like
is that ground up or whole?
I have my own method. So right now they are green. So what I do, for the green, they're still fresh. Sorry. What I do is I take a towel and then put my acorn and I cut them in two using a knife. The skin will fall off on those ones. Those are coming from what's it again? The name? It's not coast live oak. It's valley oak, I think. That's the name. They're really big. Really big. I live at 5,000 feet over here in the mountains, and then. So I basically make a very coarse mush, like a really coarse mush. And I'm going to put everything into a Vitamix like this. I can use a stone grinder, but I've become lazy as I get older. And you put them into a Vitamix, you do a very coarse mush. And then I'm going to put them into a bucket, and I'm going to put 50% acorn, and I fill it up with water. And my only job is change the water twice a day. With those ones, within 4 days, they're no longer bitter. Then I take my mush and I dehydrate it in the sun because I live in California. I can do it. And then I can take my Vitamix and just high speed and just make a flour right there and then. It takes me no time. Like within a week, I have like a decent amount of flour. If I use strong grinder, it takes a little bit longer, but they're all good. So it's really not complicated. And to this day, I really don't understand why you cannot go to Whole Foods and say, give me 5 pounds of acorn. The only reason I can think of, and I will be controversial, is they really, really, really don't want you to know. because acorn, it's very nutritious. It contains a decent amount of fat, decent amount of protein. Um, I don't think they really want you to know that it's available everywhere, and it's one of the biggest food waste, at least in Southern California.
Yeah, around here I would also say
Yeah,
that's one of the most underutilized wild
yeah,
foods,
yeah,
and I think it deserves extra attention in that it's so important ecologically, just in the number of animals, especially insects, that the oak trees support.
yeah, yeah.
Plus, there's this, you know, amazing abundance of acorns in mast years, especially.
Yeah, we have a mass year right now, and this is actually the second year. We had a very good year last year, and this year we have a mass year. So I was collecting some acorn, and it's amazing the amount of waste. I mean, there is not enough animal to actually eat all this stuff. There's none. Like it's, I have to like pick up the acorn and make sure I don't pick up the one from last year that are still there. And the only difference is really the color, and I can show you the difference of color. So those are the one that's from this year, and those are the one from last year.
Oh, fascinating. Is that the same species?
Wow.
Uh,
No.
kind of. It's not the same. I think this one is black oak, but I have the
Okay.
same thing with the valley oak. So I just collect them, and I have to differentiate between the color. And I know those one are from this year, the one are from last year. I cannot collect the one from last year because they were already kind of like rancid anyway. They've been
Yeah.
sitting in the sun for so long. But the amount is just incredible. It covers the ground. I mean, I have photos. It's the ground is just acorn, and nobody's going to pick them up, and there is not enough squirrel to actually eat them. Again, this is my definition of food waste. Yeah, we
That's
should be able
crazy.
to use that. My secret from acorn, by the way, is really I can make acorn flour taste like cookies, and the way I do it is I go taking this.
Uh-oh, what are we gonna see now? Oh man.
And acorn, I don't even talk about acorn is really a seed if you think about it, but I really don't talk about that in my book. I kind of like stay with let's see, stay with the seeds and grains, like what people think of seeds and grains. So I didn't go into acorn or anything like that. But so I take my already leach acorn flour, and I will toast it. Toasting it totally bring it to the next level. And if you add a little bit of sugar while you toast it will totally taste like a cookie. It's a simple way.
Wow.
It tastes like in Belgium we have a very specific cookie called speculoos. It's kind of like a gingerbread. It totally tastes like it. That's amazing. Like when I feed my students, like on Saturday, I'm gonna have them taste the acorn flour because most people have never tasted acorn flour. They don't even know what it is. But when they taste it, they just blow their mind. Yeah. And then I add a little bit of sugar to it because it's very, before you toast it, it's kind of like bland. There is no sugar really a lot in acorn. But I use a natural sugar. And the natural sugar that I use is from my juniper berries. So those are the California juniper berries right there. And when you pick them up at the right time, they actually turn into pure sugar. There is not even like a hint of pine or anything in it. And I can put that into a grinder and just make a powder out of it. And that's what I use for sugar.
Oh,
Wow.
fascinating. I don't think of juniper around here being sweet at all.
No, this is California only. And then another source of sugar that I use is also this one that's going to blow your mind. This is my insect sugar.
The
So
lerp.
this is a honeydew from insect, and that comes from eucalyptus. So we have eucalyptus locally, and this will be a eucalyptus leaf. And if you see, there is white stuff on it. So when they imported eucalyptus from Australia, they also imported a little insect with it. And what that little insect does, it will deposit little larvae or eggs and then you have a little larvae that sucks the juice of the eucalyptus, and then it will create a house to protect itself, and that house is made of sugar. So I can literally take bags and shake all the leaves of the eucalyptus or scrape them, and everything falls into the bag, and then you end up with those little scale which has a little house made of sugar and starch.
Oh my
This is
God.
called loaf sugar. So I can collect 4 to 5 quarts. It takes time. This one takes time, but I can get 4 to 5 quarts. It tastes exactly like toasted Rice Krispie. I mean, exactly like toasted Rice Krispie. Absolutely fascinating. So I can use that too. This is
Wow.
That's amazing.
I've
That's
never heard of
amazing.
that. That's very interesting.
And if you're from Belgium, what do we do with starch and sugar? We make beer.
Waffles?
Oh, yeah.
So you can totally use that and make like a mugwort beer, and use that as a source of sugar. By itself, I get like 3 or 4% alcohol. I try it, I would not say it was the best thing in the world because it looks like milk, and it looks like a boozy milk. But it does the job. It will do the job.
A back alley kefir.
Yeah, but at this point, I'm doing fermentation too with koji, and koji will actually turn the starch into sugar too. So by using koji, I can do like, instead of using like making a sake, I can totally probably do a sake with this. A bug sake, honeydew sake. Why not?
Wow.
Wild.
It's just fun. I like to do shit like that.
Oh man, you have the best job.
Yeah. I think everybody. It took me a while, I mean, I think the last job I had was like 15 years ago. But the way I did it is actually set up my life to be living very simply. I cannot live in LA right now. Like the rent is so expensive, so I live actually in the mountain right here, 90 minutes from LA, and it's affordable for me, and I absolutely love it. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I live in the mountain. If you go outside, I don't have any neighbor. My neighbor is like a goat. I live on an old goat farm. And then my secret is to find different source of income. So you can do classes, but it's still not enough. I mean, you're living in Southern California, classes don't pay all the bill. You can also, so you write books, people buy the books, so you get a little bit of royalty too. You don't make that much money with book. I think you get like $2 per book or something like that. And then what else? Webinar. You can do webinar too, so I can actually teach you different people in the world. Then I do the pottery now. So, I collect wild clay in the mountain, and I do my own pottery, and I do my own glaze using rocks too. So people buy some of the pottery too. So, and then you basically have money coming from different locations, and you end up making a living. So I'm very lucky. I'm like totally very lucky.
Yeah. Diversified household income, and keep your overhead low.
And it works because it's, when the economy gets bad, guess what? You have more people going to classes because I teach them how to eat free food, but they're not going to buy as much pottery. But when the economy is doing well and people have more money, they may buy more pottery, but less interest into, it's interesting. So everything kind of balances itself out to some degree, I also teach traditional food preservation technique too, which I think is very important. It's not just wild food, but I teach people how to do canning and teach people how to do fermentation. So I have classes here. People will drive from Los Angeles here, and I will teach them how to do canning, how to do, all these different methods of food preservation, which are, people again forgot. There is no school on the subject either. You get YouTube video, you get all kind of different stuff, but some people go like, I really want to have somebody, showing it to me because they don't trust, just watching a video and do it. So you basically give them like peace of mind a little bit. You're like, hey, look, I'm still alive and I've done it.
Yeah, it's nice to have that in-person interaction too. I think the community aspect of learning stuff from a person in real life is valuable in itself.
Yeah, fermentation, people are always afraid of like, oh, the mold and anything going bad or whatever. And I show them like it's impossible. If you do it properly, it's impossible to get mold. It's yeah.
Yeah, with fermentation, I my experience has been if something does go wrong for some reason,
Yeah.
it will smell so awful that you wouldn't eat it anyway. Like your
Yeah.
your nose will let you know, like, oh, maybe not that one.
But even to go there on having something going bad is nearly impossible. Like when the way I teach them, like I really show them like it's always the same mistake that people do. They basically leave the ferment alone. Like if you take a kimchi like right there, and let's say I leave that one alone and I'm not touching it, it's guaranteed to go bad at one point. Mostly the top, because the top is still open to oxygen. So the only secret when you do like, because I do crazy fermentation. I mean, I ferment roots, I ferment whole leaf. I mean, I ferment like crazy things that are wild. So I basically really streamline my method. And even when I do a kimchi, I ferment everything in jar. I don't buy crocks or I don't buy anything. And the idea is you just need to stir it, because by stirring it or pushing it down, you basically all the acidity is happening in the middle of the ferment. It's really like in the heart of the furnace is where everything is really fermenting. So the weak point is always the top, and there is always some amount of oxygen on top. So this is where the bad stuff can occur. But if you shake it, or if you stir it, or if you push down on it and get the liquid coming out, you're taking all this acidity and bring it to the top. There is no way it can go wrong, ever, ever, ever. And if you do that once or twice a day, mostly in the beginning of the fermentation, like the first week, then you always guarantee it will never go bad, ever, 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 ever. Like it's not possible. It cannot go bad because it becomes too acidic and the mold cannot take over, or anything that, will make it bad will take over. It's not possible. So that's kind of like the secret I teach people is like just you need to work with your ferment. Only lazy people will get mold. So I mean, I'm kidding, but it's like if you don't work with your ferment, yeah, you guarantee to get mold. But if you work with it, you stir it, you push it down. Like if I do a hot sauce, for example, I go online and what the way people do is they put peppers and then a brine, like water and salt, and they leave it alone. And I would say like 50% of, not 50%, but a large quantity of those guys have problem. Meanwhile, I do completely the reverse. I don't have any brine. I take everything into my Vitamix and I make a paste. So I know what it looks like. I know like that's the way I do it because I know the texture of my hot sauce. If I want it creamy or if I want it very liquid or whatever, I can do it in the Vitamix. Then I ferment it. So I'm doing it backwards.
Fascinating.
But the only difference is I'm going to stir the stuff twice a day. I've never had one of those ferment go bad ever. There is no brine. There is nothing that you can keep under the brine. There is no, but by stirring it, you're taking this acidity. It's just, basically just make sure that nothing can go bad doing it. So I've never had a ferment go bad in 15 years, ever, ever, ever. I had to have a bad ferment for my book, and it was so hard to get a bad ferment. I had to. I was taking my cat, and it's like, go spit in it, put your paw in it, the oxygen, sneeze in it, you know. My God, it was so hard to have a bad ferment.
Oh man, yeah. I've seen a lot of calm yeast in my day, but not so much mold. It's like snowing again.
The camis is the same problem if you do alcohol. It's usually too much oxygen. And in the beginning, your ferment was not alcoholic enough, therefore there was not enough acidity. And you get the same problem. So headspace is a big deal with cam yeast. But if you stir your ferment, or if you stir, I don't care if I do a wine or whatever, like I show you, I have a rice wine right there. So I stir the stuff. I stir the stuff for the first week, like twice a day. And at this point, this one probably has, I would say, 15% alcohol or more. Camis cannot. It's too much for camis. So it's just sitting there. I will never get camis, and there's, a little headspace right there. Yeah. So it is there. I'm probably going to go to the next step. I'm going to go to I'm probably going to take this and go to a country where I can do moonshine, and then make moonshine.
Nice.
Because it's very illegal to do it in America. So I will go over there, because I will never do that in America ever. Not
Of course not.
Of course not.
No one would do that.
No one would do that. So, but anyway.
What's the plant? Hey, what's the caffeinated plant in the book that Aaron, do you know what plant
Cleavers?
I'm talking about? Cleavers. We have those out here, don't we?
Yeah, but that one is controversial in terms of caffeinated. If you go to the next page, I explain a little bit. It's controversial. Some studies say there's some caffeine in it, but most of the study will actually tell you no. And then I really took a look at it, and I don't trust the original study. So I have the feeling I don't think there is actually caffeine in it, just so you know.
Okay.
But I can say that. But you can fool people.
I think if there is any, it's like trace amounts. It's not like what's the holly? Ilex vomitoria. Yopon.
Yopon.
Yeah.
Yopon has it. Yopon has it. But
that's the North American caffeine source.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So anyway, that was a bit controversial. In the beginning, I kind of thought he had it, and I actually found some scientific document, but those scientific documents came from an iffy source, like different countries, and all the other sources that were more civilized country didn't seem to show any coffee in it. But it was confusing because a lot of people were herbalists or even foragers said there is coffee in it. It took me a long time to figure it out, but I don't think there is. It's still controversial to this time. Yeah.
But it still like hops you up. It's like, is it ephedra? Like what's in the Mormon tea?
Ephedra is Mormon tea. Yeah. So when I did some research on Mormon tea, you don't have the chemical compound that is ephedra in the one that grows in the United States. It's the one from China.
Okay.
So you can drink as much as you want, which is why the Mormon did it. Like it doesn't do anything to you. Unless something changed, but so I did some good research on ephedra. I could not find in the United States. I could not find a chemical compound called ephedra that you will find. The one that's really not good for you, it will be the one that's from China and Asia. So not a problem.
Oh, cool. Aaron, I feel like we've jumped around a lot, and I've done my best to help derail this conversation. So I don't know if you have it, like, I could ask some crazy food questions, but as far as like the core of the help to sell the book stuff, are there any other your questions that you really want to ask that we haven't answered?
Pascal, you've done a wonderful job of answering many of my questions before I even had a chance to ask them. One that is still open is, are there any species that you think are particularly well suited to cultivation of the wild seeds and grains that you've foraged? What are some ones that might be appealing as garden plants?
Oh, dude, I'm a forager. This is an interesting one. Okay, I'm going to give you some that I actually do use in my garden because I use them all the time. A good one would be the wild radish. Those pods. I love those pods so much. And I always cry when they're gone. Like this is California, and come July, we're like, more radish pods. So I like to plant them in my garden, and we water them, and I get a second generation of radish pod. I just like them so much. They're really tasty. They make an incredible microgreen. They basically you can. I have a pack. I actually bought packs because I wanted to like see the difference in flavor and size. And if I can find that thing. So this is
we saw all those McDonald's wrappers in there. We could see the McDonald's wrappers hanging out the side.
Yeah. This will be your radish radish sprouts, and the seeds look identical, and the flavor is the same too. This is super expensive, so I can collect all those for free, and I can put them into my Vitamix, and then I do my own sprout. This is one of the sprout that I use in that one right there.
Awesome.
So wild radish I love to plant. Wild mustard I would love to plant them if I didn't have any, but I have so much of it I don't need to. Black mustard, I love the black mustard. It's super spicy like wasabi. Absolutely adore that one. Mint. I have 3 different wild mint in my garden, and they really take over because it's mint. People say you're crazy to plant mint, but I use mint all the time. Mugwort is another one that I plant. Mugwort is the plant, mostly the one that I used to make beer. It's one of my favorite culinary plant. If I do anything sweet, I will add mugwort to it. Mugwort is a plant that's very aromatic. It's related to wormwood, so it's very aromatic, and it's also bitter. So you need some sugar to balance that bitterness. But it's an incredible plant it's kind of like an umami for anything that is sweet. Like if you make a soda or jam or whatever, or even a sauce. And, this is the plant that the Viking or the Celt would have used instead of hops before hops showed up to make beer.
Yeah, fascinating. I don't hear of people using mugwort very often as a culinary flavor, so that's an interesting piece.
Well,
I'll have to give that a try.
It's like wine. You go to the store and the only wine you have is grapes. Why is that?
Yeah.
I mean, you can make grapes, and you can do blackberry wine. You can do prickly pear wine. You can, I have 300 bottles of wine right now that are aging, and I make pine wine. I made wild chervil wine. I made oak leaf wine. It just goes on and on and on. Manzanita wine, juniper wine, blah blah blah. This is stuff that people have done all the time, and people don't know about it because it's not quote unquote civilized. Meaning by that, you can't. It's lost. Look. My computer is actually sitting on a book, and a friend of mine wrote this one. This is a book about all the plants that have been used to make beer. Look at the size of that book.
Oh, fascinating.
Wow.
So hops will be 2 pages of that book. And that book is 300 pages. It's a big book, 8.5 by 11 inches. About a year beer.
Who's the guy who put out all those books about making beer from herbs? I feel like you've referenced him in your books.
There's a bunch. There's quite a few. Baudar.
Maybe that's who it is. Just making
sacred and healing medicinal beer, I think, or something like that. That's the name.
Yeah,
very fantastic book. Baudar was really like one of the inspiration for all my research because I came across that book and I read it, and he's a fantastic writer. Was a fantastic writer. He passed away last year. I absolutely love that book. So yeah, I mean, in the old days, I mean, think about it. Hops showed up in the literature in the year 900. There is no trace of hops before the year 900. Do you think people made beer before the year 900? I mean,
yeah,
Viking, all this stuff were making beer, of course. So they were simply using different plants. And, in the book, I kind of explained, like, you have the top 3 ones that were used. It was yarrow, mugwort or wormwood. And then this is the one I cannot find in California. You have to go to Maine to get it. It's bog myrtle. And those
interesting.
Bog metal? Bog nettle.
No, bog myrtle. M-Y.
Myrtle.
Qu'est-ce que t'as dit, merde? Sorry. The French accent. Oh la la. No, bog myrtle, yeah. But then, and the list goes on from there, And yeah, you have a whole book. This guy is working at a university, so it's a kind of like a hardcore scientific book, and it all the little photos and all that, but it's just a book of all the plants that have been used for brewing.
So fun.
Hops is an anomaly. It's, I gotta tell you, the big secret on why hops or why you can only buy grapes wine is really there's only one main reason. There's definitely
The church.
Taxes, the church or the states. It's all about the money. And if you cannot make money out of it, then you can't do it. So that's why they passed the law. And at one point I forgot when they did it, like around the year 1200 or something like that, they passed the law that you can only make beer with hops and grains. There you go. And
weird.
And once you pass a law like that, then guess what? You can tax it because you can force people to do it. So you tax people who provide the hops, you tax people who makes the hop, you tax people who drink the hops. It's money, and then you make complicated equipment that is very expensive to make the stuff too. And it's the same thing as same thing.
And hops, there's also the thing that like hops makes you docile and subdued and tired, whereas like some of the other like Viking beers were like, let's go fucking burn a village down,
Yeah. Or if you have two different parties, like you have like two different places where people have a big party, and in one of those places they drink mugwort beer, and the other one they drink hops beer. They found out they had more babies where people were drinking the mugwort beer after the party.
Food history like that is so fun. It's so fun, man. Like all the little anecdotes you can pick up are just, it brings it all together,
The last one was true, but that's something, mugwort is supposed to make you more...
I'm going to repeat it. It's true. I read it in the new David Graeber book.
It's probably true.
Oh man!
Did I answer the question to you?
Yeah. No, that's great. Tim, did you have any other
I'm going to give you
questions?
I'm going to give you a little bit of a summary from my perspective about collecting grains and seeds. And to be honest, it really changed my life in the sense that if you take a look at the recipe, grains and seeds go so much beyond just what people think they do, which is, making, flatbreads and breads and crackers and stuff like that. Good example, tea. If I go, one of the first one is in many culture, people used to make tea with roasted grains. Korean. I'm living in Los Angeles, you have so many different culture. Every time I go to a Korean restaurant, they will give me a tea that I really like very earthy and whatever. I found out it was barley. It was a barley tea, barley grain.
Weird.
Basically, roast the grain, make a tea out of it. It's absolutely delicious. And guess what? The technique that I use for one of the primitive technique that I use to remove the grain is there's fire. So I end up with roasted grain. I can make a tea out of it. The wild barley tea is absolutely fantastic. It's so delicious. In the Middle East, they take the mustard seeds and make a tea that tastes like maple syrup. That's another example. Culinary wife, those sprouts can look so beautiful. Those are sprouts from curly duck. So we have curly duck, we have lamb's quarter, we have wild amaranth. If you do plating or if you're a chef, it kind of like brings your game to the next level. You cannot buy this shit at the store.
Mm-hmm.
It's so beautiful. Lamb's quarter seeds taste like dates, so amazing. Curly duck, the sprouts taste like lemon. But it's
really?
The color goes anywhere from purple to beautiful yellow. It's just unbelievable.
I'm definitely gonna have to try curly dock sprouts because it's so easy to collect and so abundant.
Yeah, and then look also at the amaranth microgreen. Look at the color of those guys. So all purple. It's so pretty.
Yeah. I'm definitely a sucker for the red amaranth microgreens always.
So soups. This is a wild grain soup right there. So it completely changed my life as a forager. Like I use grains all the time now. Like this is my class for this weekend. So I have a whole jar of sprout. I'm gonna mix that to my wild food salad. I'm gonna mix that to the kimchi before I serve it. I'm gonna mix that, So I have like 10 different plants in that little jar that I sprouted right there, mostly brassica, but even in the kimchi, I already have my grains that are set up right there. They're sitting there. You can see them right there. Those are all the different
That's
grains.
so cool.
So we have wild oats, we have wild barley. So yeah, it kind of like expanded my pantry like you won't believe, and also porridge. I remember I did a class, and for everybody in the class, I made a Neolithic porridge, and I explained where it came from and the bug bodies, and people were like fascinated. They're like, "Oh my God, we eating stuff that have not been eaten for thousands of years."
That's so cool, man.
And I think that's what's cool. Is like you're eating stuff that have not been eaten for thousands of years. This is the food of your ancestor. If I do fermentation, I mix them all the time. I'm like, this one is roasted. This is the most incredible seeds, my favorite. Thistle sage, which is a plant that you find in the desert. It tastes much better than toasted sesame seeds, and it's much bigger. So if I do fermentation of mustard leaf and I put a bit of those on top, it's just bring it to the next level. So I use them I ferment all the time. Okay, so if I do sprouts, and there we go. This is like a fermented salsa and sprouts right there. So it's lacto-fermented. I can take those sprouts and just lacto-ferment them. So I could take this one, just the sprout as is, and make something similar to a kimchi or a curry using spices and totally fermented and 100% wild sprout. It's delicious. You can't buy that at the store. I love doing stuff like that. Sauce. So different mustard condiment, quinoa, a type of quinoa. This is a dish that I made, and it's pretty much like 100% wild. This is all the wild grains and seeds cooked properly. Took me forever, but it was good. And then you add a little bit. It's kind of like a tabbouleh. You can totally do a tabbouleh, and my God, if you add a little bit of chickweed or wild chervil to it, you bring it to the next level. Yeah.
Hey, what about using like are there other like can you use like the wild bulgur wheat or there's got to be some like out here we have wild sorghum that I thought could be used as a grain,
Yeah, I have Johnson grass, which is a wild sorghum. I've totally that over here too, and you can totally use it. I've used it. For example, vegan meatballs. Vegan meatballs, and those are all the different grains and seeds that I use to make the meatballs.
Oh my God.
So yeah, you
oh
can.
My God.
But the idea for me that's super cool is the fact that you are eating food that has not been eaten for thousands of years, and you feel like a little bit like the anarchist because you feel like they really don't want like the modern the USDA really doesn't want you to know all this shit because it's all surrounding you, it's everywhere, and I'm telling you, like the ability to like go foraging for one morning and make bread the same day, it just blew my mind, But like dessert,
dude,
you can turn. This is a beautiful dessert that I made using wild season grain as a topic on. I know it doesn't look very good. There you go.
Oh yeah, like it's those little like hippie carob. It's your version of the hippie carob balls rolled in the. Yeah, those are so cool, man. Again, I'm a huge. I'm talking to one of my food heroes right now. You're Wolfgang Puck to me, but what I love about your books is it takes you on this adventure and it gives you like a lens of looking at your terroir. And what's cool about your book is you're just touching the surface. And so like what we come up with, what we'll find out here, because there's so many like wild flowers here that were used medicinally, that are edible. Well, how do they work as spices? How can we what's that yellow, Aaron? What's that like tall yellow flower? It's a biennial. What is it?
Goldenrod.
No.
Monkey plant.
But the seeds taste like sesame seeds. Do you know what I'm talking about, Aaron?
No, not off the top of my head.
Oh man, I want to call it a daylily or moon something or night something, or I don't know. Forget it.
This is where you study your terroir, and all the books, even the fermentation book or beer book or whatever. I basically really make a point of using plant that you will find locally as much as possible. And I don't care if you're in Europe or if you're in North America or even Asia. I'm really looking for the plants that are really abundant pretty much everywhere. Most of them are non-native and invasive, kind of. But I make a point so that, once you've taken that book and read it, then you can start exploring your own environment and looking for your own flavor, But even, for me, I'm looking at California as of 2025. So a lot of those plants are there now. This is my terroir as of 2025. And, there's a lot of them that can be considered non-native or invasive, but I don't care. If it's food, it is food. This is here right now.
Yeah, just like us, we're invasives here right now. Yeah, evening primrose, guys. That was the plant I was talking about. Gotcha. Evening primrose.
So we have evening primrose too, and it's listed too in the book. You can toast them, and I get that, but I gotta tell you, the thistle sage for me was the one that blew my mind. And on top of it, this is a good. What blew my mind is why not planting those? This is a plant in the desert. It doesn't require water. It requires 3 days of rain, and it's gonna grow like crazy. It's good enough. Nobody is using it. Nobody's planting it. Nobody is and that's a native plant. You can be in the desert and cultivate that plant. Nobody's doing it. I don't want to become a farmer. That's not what I do. But I'm just saying, it blows my mind that nobody's really doing this stuff. And it's always about the money. What you buy at the store is about the money. You think you have power of choice, but you don't. They give you the stuff they can make money off.
Right.
They're not going to give you the native chia. They're not going to give you the thistle sage because it's too difficult. They're not going to make as much money. So they're going to import a non-native plant from South America and sell that to you because they make more money that way. So they don't give a shit about the terroir, the habitat. They don't give a shit about, they just want to make money. And it's all a money game. And it is what it is. I mean, but I don't have to be part of it, And I think there is still room for some of us. There's still room for some of us to be able to be still a bit anarchist and go I want the real flavor. I want the flavor of the land. I want to work with the environment. I want to do it the right way, and I want to have my own organic food. I don't need you guys. There's room for us. We like the educated Neanderthal.
Hey man, that's the way to be. And I love that you said anarchist twice on this podcast. Now my Pascal Baudar bucket list is complete.
And I do love the I see my niche often as kind of finding these wild plants and seeing which ones work in the garden, and stuff like Sochan or Rudbeckia laciniata is a wonderful wild plant to forage where it's abundant, but it's also just an awesome perennial vegetable in the garden.
There you go.
And I'm intrigued to start experimenting with more wild seeds and grains now.
Yeah, the mallow, for example, is a good example. We have this plant called mallow here in Southern California that's everywhere. It's one of the most invasive weed. But you go back to the Middle East, there was a whole article in Palestine. They were surviving on it.
Mm-hmm.
They sell it at the market. I went to a Korean market in Los Angeles. They were selling it like money, But
it's an Egyptian national dish in Egypt.
Yeah. So it's amazing. It's one of those you go but nobody's picking it up unless you are Palestinian or Jewish or whatever. You will pick it up. Maybe Armenian. I don't think Armenian. Every time I see somebody picking it up, they're either Palestinian or Jewish. I didn't know that plant, but it's so everywhere, and nobody's doing anything about it. You go wow, that's crazy.
I've been growing it, and I still haven't cooked with it either. I
I'm going to
feel like
it's so interesting. It's so for one of the
Aaron, do you sell Spice Bush?
I don't currently, but I planted a couple hundred seeds this fall, and I hope to have seedlings next year.
Because I think the leaves of
you go what?
Spice Bush would be really cool in wines. Spice Bush?
I
Do
don't
you know
have it
that plant?
Lindera.
Yeah.
I don't have it locally, but I know. Yeah. So
I
mallow,
love
my
the
little
leaves.
secret. Yeah. Can I go back to mallow?
Yep, go for it with mallow.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
I know we keep. So the mallow, you can totally eat it. It's kind of like a gooey a little bit. It's kind of like an okra, kind of, you know. But when you dehydrate plant, they usually turn brown. I don't know if you try dehydrate mustard or whatever, everything turns brown. When you dehydrate mallow, it stays like fluorescent green. It's so interesting. So you even protect it, and you end up with this beautiful green like this. And
Wow,
it
what a
smells
color.
it smells like matcha tea. A very, very strong smell of matcha tea. And I use it as a type of agar. So if I want something if I do a sauce or a soup and I want texture to it, I just put that powder inside it, and it gives this incredible green flavor, but makes everything more solid and more gooey. It's so interesting. Yeah. So that's kind of like
amazing.
you can see the color of the green, and this is 2 years old, by the way. So it's still green.
Can you use it as like a mucilagenic tonic when you have a respiratory issue also?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
We have Noma that's coming to Los Angeles in August, the restaurant Noma. And I've been talking to them. Yeah, so they're super. So I'm kind of like working with Noma on like invasive plant and their use, and kind of like, see if so they're super interested by the mallow. So that's a good example,
The fact
That's
that
awesome.
it stayed green so long makes me think it must have a bunch of antioxidants in it too.
But you have to put it into a bag like this to protect it from the sun, because then it turns tan. So it will turn the same color as the bag. But if you protect it, so it's been protected in the bag for 2 years, and it's still like beautiful green, and it smells absolutely fantastic, really like a matcha.
That is so.
Yeah.
The other thing in your book, in this new book, you were talking about using the leaves of the seeds from broadleaf plantains as a gluten-free binder. And in my work, sometimes I'll see psyllium husk, and people use psyllium husk as a binder. And if you look at a picture of psyllium husk, it looks identical to broadleaf. I don't know if you know anything about that.
Broadleaf plantain is the chef is a psyllium. It's the same.
It's the same.
Same or similar. I don't know if exactly the same. It's completely. It's a psyllium too. It's the same. Yeah.
Wow.
So you can totally use it exactly for the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, it works.
Yeah, you can use that to make a melty vegan cheese. So you can make a melty.
Yeah. I don't know, like, it's, I mean, I know when I studied that, psyllium and broadleaf plantain are pretty much identical.
Wow.
The psyllium coming from it, yeah. Where was that? But anyway, so all those seeds and grain, it kind of like give me a brand new game as a forager. Like it was really like a new level, but also it completely changed my game in the pantry. I have a pantry with all kinds of different stuff, and I would say at this point, like 20 to 25% of my pantry are different seeds and grains. Yeah. And
that's so cool.
The lie is that it is not difficult to forage. It is not difficult to, some of them are more difficult, but some of them are very easy. And in the end, you get all this diversity, And I think, I love it. And anyway.
It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron, is there anywhere else to go here?
Well, we're at pretty much the 2-hour mark, so I think we should.
No. I have like 60 more questions.
No, if you got more questions.
No, I'm just kidding. I was just kidding.
Okay.
I was just having fun rooting through Pascal's pantry.
We could go on and on. I do see a question about using the seeds of Queen Anne's lace, which I'm not familiar with, and that one is a super abundant plant out here. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you use the seeds of Queen Anne's lace for.
It's just traditional. I actually don't have it locally. It's just very traditional. I used it when I was in Colorado and use it for stews and stuff. It's just it's just a very tasty seeds. It's, there's a disclaimer, and a little bit of a disclaimer. It's not something you want to have in large quantity if you're pregnant, because I know, but it's not in the book, but somebody, like there was an herbalist.
I have heard that, yeah.
Yeah. But it's not in the quantity that we use for culinary use anyway. You will need like way more quantity. So it's like mugwort too. Some we're like, you cannot take mugwort if you're pregnant. Like, not in the culinary application. So the culinary application is totally fine. I've never seen like any contraindication for it. But it's just a very tasty spice. That's
cool. I'll have to give it a try.
It's been very traditionally used in Europe in the old days, and one recipe also in Armenia where they were using it too. So it's just one of the spices. I have a whole section, by the way. It's good that you bring it up. I have a whole section in my book about seeds and grains as spice. So I have a chapter that are like all the most common seeds and grains, and then at the end of the chapter, I have a whole section, probably like 20 pages, about all the seeds and grains you can also use as spice for all kind of different dish, and one of them will be the Queen Anne lace right there. Yeah.
So cool, man! Thanks for writing all these books, and it was really fun. Talking to you.
It becomes like a lifestyle, because you're doing all this. It's a lifestyle for me, but you kind of feel like you want to share it a little bit. And I think book for me has been a great way to actually share that information. And I think it's important to continue sharing it. And I'm really happy about this book, Seeds and Grains, because this is really knowledge that is being forgotten. Like, people don't know this stuff anymore. People don't know all the huge amount of seeds and grains you can find in your environment. It's absolutely amazing. And this is lost knowledge, and it nearly pissed me off that we don't teach that to people anymore, and it pissed me off that this knowledge is getting lost. So I really wanted to write a book about it, because we need to know. We need to, and it's a fantastic alternative to what we are being offered. And a lot of the grains and seeds that we are being offered don't have the diversity that we need. And being able to forage your own seeds and grains will actually bring that diversity. And I think a lot of people have a problem right now with modern nutrition, mostly grains and seeds, because you don't have that diversity, and that you basically get those, very domesticated grain that don't have the same nutritional value that the original grain had. So we go back to the original grain to some degree. Rambling.
Yep.
Well, the book is amazing. It's got just the right amount of detail. It's very accessible. So everyone should definitely check that out from their local bookshop. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You've been on the list of people to reach out to and try and get to come on the pod for quite a while now. So I'm thrilled to finally get to talk to you.
Okay.
And really appreciate it. And how can people follow your work if they would like to hear more from you?
So the best way to do it will be like Instagram or Facebook. That's probably because I do share a lot of information.
Yep.
And then 2026, I'm going to try to do some video finally. I'm not looking forward to it, but
I don't blame you. Video editing's an ass ache.
It's mostly the editing and all this stuff, and I'm really more like a photographer, so I was always very good about my photos. But the problem is you don't get the reach anymore on social media if you just do photo, mostly Instagram. Actually, it's really sad that you're actually literally losing people at this point. And I want to continue sharing all this information that I'm getting, so I'm probably going to go do a little bit more video. But anyway, so Instagram will be under my name, and Facebook is also under my name, Pascal, Pascal, Baudar, Baudar.
Excellent. Well, we will link to that in the show notes.
But I
And
refuse to dance.
what's that?
I refuse to dance. I'm not going to be dancing.
Same.
You know, man,
you
just
will
get
never
a-
find
just
me
get a-
dancing on social media.
Just get a good tripod that can be up high, you know, so you don't have to be in it. So you know what I mean? That's what you get to preserve your aesthetic if you have like a up high tripod looking down, right? Is that what you're gonna do?
I don't know. I think I'm going to go more. I'm going to go more toward the process of doing things than myself, because if you look at my Instagram, it's not about me. It's more about the process and the thing. So I think my video will be like that too, like just showing people how to do things using video, which is not bad. It's just I have to. I was mostly a photographer, and I really learned photography, but they really cut down your reach if you just use photo at this point. It's just simply what it is.
Yeah. If you're making things, you're working for Meta.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Well, have a great day, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you too.
Yeah, really appreciate coming on the pod. Have a good afternoon.
Oui. Au revoir.
Bye.
Adios.